Welcome to the space between. This is where honest conversations live. Be prepared to explore the gap between what we say we do and what really drives growth, creativity, and change. Brought to you by MSQ. Visit msqindex.com to learn more. Join us now as we enter the space between.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Space Between with Ben, Slater, and myself, Seth Hawthorne from MSQ. In the hot seat in the Space Between us this morning, we have Dan Reeves. Dan is the co-founder of Subject.ai. And Subject is really sort of helping brands stay visible in this kind of crazy world of AI. And that's a very simplistic way of explaining what Subject is. And I'm sure Dan will do a much better job. So Dan, would you like to sort of introduce yourself and give us a little bit more of a context of what Subject does?
I will. Good morning to you both as well. Seth, always good to see you. Ben, great to see you again this morning. And thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. So just a quick explainer. Yes. So we launched, my business partner and I launched Subject about 6 months ago. We are an API first B2B SaaS product, essentially fully optimizing content for this new era of AI search. And we talk about AI search in that there has been a fundamental shift, and that has been going on for some time, really. I mean, Google started this as it moved from keywords to entities, and entities and topics, which are linked to the knowledge graph. And Ben and I had worked on previous product iterations using semantics and NLP and looking at archive searches using this technology. So we were not sort of completely fresh to the AI space, but we saw some challenges for a number of operators around digital content, both as publishers, so digital publishing operations, but also B2B operators that were using and continue to use content as a key part of their brand and communication messaging, and still sort of, operating own sites, so websites and building content for websites. And as you quite rightly pointed out, Seth, there has been this since certainly through 2025, this incredible shift, I suppose, accelerated shift in the way in which search works. And that is that the answer engines, so the likes of ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic, have accelerated their RAG systems, so the way in which they search the live web, and the way in which they retrieve, synthesize, and answer prompts and questions from customers such as ourselves when we use those platforms to find out information. But I do think that where we sit is around this sort of foundational best practice. So we talk about, as I say, this topic and entity shift that has been taking place over a number of years. We look at optimizing content through automated internal linking, automated tagging, schema markup, thinking about how you can develop an entity-first content strategy to ensure that both in classic search, and also as we move through into a full sort of AI search environment, that you remain visible, that those machines and humans can read your content, enjoy your content, understand what your brand is and your products are, but also that machines can surface you correctly with the right information. And that's where we have sort of developed our product. And just as an update, we are about to ship a new set of features into our web app. So we will have a sort of self-serve aspect or element to the product that will mean that a product or a brand can come to us, they can upload their website to our platform, we will undertake the topic and entity analysis, and then we will deliver the suite of services through a web app experience and a sophisticated editor. So we are looking at we've always looked at this as an agnostic solution. So with APIs, it means we can embed into multiple CMSs. So that gives us a sort of agnostic solution. We have the web app, and we're also developing around MCP and AI agents. So yes, that's long way round.
Extraordinary.
Where we are.
No, that was incredible, Dan. So just so I understand it from a sort of layman's point of view, you have all the cheat codes to get basically brands visible on AI. Would that be right?
I think that's a great.
It's a dangerous phrase, that cheat code.
Yeah,
dangerous
it's a great
phrase.
question. I suppose, I would say no to that, in the sense that we're not looking at supporting businesses necessarily that are trying to make a quick win. But obviously,
I understand.
there are opportunities. No. But I think it's a great question, because I think there are opportunities for first movers. So those brands that really see an opportunity in owning their sort of search visibility in a way that they wouldn't have been able to for many years through organic search and the way in which that sort of the classic Google sort of search world worked, which was crawl, index and rank, and therefore it was a long, much more longer game to play to be able to be number one in the SERP sort of rankings. Whereas now brands do have an opportunity, if they move swiftly and they move correctly, that they can get visible and they can get mentions and citations, which is the new sort of currency for AI search sort of traffic, if you like. They can own that, but I think it is also a long-term game. So it does mean that you need to shift the way in which you approach search, and if you adopt this sort of best practices around topic and entities, and that you can optimize your content correctly for that, then you will get surfaced, and you will also, and you need to ensure, and we may come on to this, but around third party. So your owned and your earned are two areas that are really interconnected. It's not about backlinks. It's actually about ensuring that your brand is surfaced and mentioned on third parties like Reddit or YouTube or LinkedIn, that they match and corroborate what you're saying online.
I personally think, I come back to the name of your company, to subject, and I think that it's deeper. It's deeper than just what's the subject you're talking about. The way that I view your brand is what's the subject matter. And you talked about RAG before, which I'd like you to get into, because we've looked at search as a quick phrase, a quick little, I want to blah, 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 and get that answered. And that was great. You made it to the top of your rankings, and you've got to work to keep hard at it. And there's rules that change. And yes, Seth, people did introduce cheat codes. And then, it's there's that cycle. Whereas, again, if we look at the name of your business, it's subject matter. It's so much more than just a simple question. It is everything related to that subject matter that is going to drive people through to what they want to learn. It may come from a simple query, but it might be 30, 40 steps deep to be able to get to that simple query, so that when they actually get that result, they're not just going to a dead end. That's how it used to be. You go to a web page, and you'd land on that web page, and you'd get told the thing that you needed answered, and it was almost like a brick wall. That's where you stop. So, and that's what I see AI has changed, is that there is an increasingly, an increasingly deep well of information, and I'm assuming that's what the core platform that you work with does, is that it brings all of that knowledge from the business and just surfaces it.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, actually, Ben, and appreciate the kind of around the name that we sort of use and the brand that we're trying to create for our business. And I think you touched on, I'll try not to use too many acronyms, but you talked about, and actually it's worth talking about, is RAG, is the retrieval augmented generation, which is the systems by which, the language models, the AI answer engines use to essentially go to the live web and pull back information to help synthesize their answers. But it's really quite fascinating that as we've sort of worked through this last sort of 12 to 18 months, we're starting to understand a little bit more on what's going on under the hood, so that we know that when someone puts in a prompt, actually what's taking place is, and it varies per platform, but they're running a synthesized prompt fan out. So they're actually, what they're creating is around 4 to even 15 very similar styles of prompts to ensure that when they answer the question, or they come back and the synthesize and pulling in the information, that they answer as much around the initial intent and the prompt that someone's putting into the system, to ensure that they're answering that question as best as possible. So where they go out and they find chunks of text or chunks of information that they then use to synthesize, there can be up to 50 different, or more, kind of sites or brands that they've looked to pull in that information to answer the question. So you have to ensure from your brand, from a brand perspective, that you are covering those core topics you want to be recognized for in a deep and well-structured, sourced information level. So you do have deep subject understanding, that you can present that deep subject understanding back to the machines as well as the customer.
Yeah, and the critical thing there is that it's not about having that content on your website. It's where else does it sit?
Everything.
And so the issue there is have brands and businesses woken up to the fact that AI has sort of decoupled their website from potentially their business pipeline. Is that an area of concern or misunderstanding at the moment?
I think again, you touch on a really good point. And again, as businesses that operate not just within the search space, but actually in a wider brand marketing space, are beginning to sort of really sort of test and understand what's going on and how these platforms are actually, again, synthesizing the web to be able to create an answer. We know that they're using third-party sites, not just to help answer the initial prompt, but also to use as verification and corroboration around what a particular brand might be saying about itself, or a product may be saying about itself. I mean, if you've got a very poor score on Reddit, for example, it will use that and will be able to pull in that information as part of its answer process. I think if you've got a position, that you have you've got content on, say, for example, YouTube, ensure that is backs up, that both your owned content on your site, but also how you are surfaced on YouTube is corroborative, and that it matches. And I think it also poses the question not just about those sort of third party sites, but also it also brings into play PR like it's never done before. In the sense that PR is hugely important now as part of how your brand is being talked about, is being surfaced in your, say, for example, if you're an audio brand and you've got technology, you need to be able to manage how your brand is being discussed and being surfaced within particular technology sites, for example. So that third party plays is hugely important because it is part of the answer process.
Yeah,
but it's backlinks on steroids, isn't it? That used to be the thing that you needed to do, and yet what this is saying is, okay, we're taking contextually what's being talked about by others, and then the other thing which is fascinating is that we're now in a world where multimedia, be it video like you just mentioned before, it can be transcribed easily. Where it actually, or even looked at easily. AI can now look at contextually what's happening on the screen. To write up on a product, they're not necessarily listening to the transcript; they're actually viewing the images that are coming out of the video, and that all just leads into this play. Now, I think the thing that scares me a little bit is that and this, I believe this is a genuine problem, is that there is going to be a race for content creation. And as more content creation happens, then there potentially needs to be a shift in how the winners are elevated. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that in terms of what we're going to see to validate. I know the third party is great validation, but is there a future where there needs to be more assessment, or do you think the RAG scenario fixes that?
I think that's a great question, because I think it comes into play around what's being kind of kicked around in many circles called AI slop. So what constitutes great content? And actually we've hit a point now that all, that we're over 50% of all content now being generated is being generated by AI, or at least a blend of. And so we have a situation now where, again, there is a danger potentially. Are those machines then going to start to sort of learn off their own content, and where are the genuine sources of information coming from? We do, and look, these machines still hallucinate, so again, they are
less so. I think the RAG
they are less so. Yes, no, that's very true.
Yeah.
But I think they still can, and it does beg the question: will these platforms, Google obviously still being, by far and away the biggest player in the search space, and how information is retrieved from the web? Because there is a bigger question probably around, how, as we see agent layers coming in, and agentic AI also, growing rapidly, and how those agents are retrieving information from the web also is ensuring that there is still great content produced. That, say, for example, digital publishers, which is a industry that we work with, who have seen not just their content being stolen, if you like, by the original LLM sort of models when they were built, but also continue to this day to have a situation whereby there was an unwritten rule between themselves and Google, where Google would deliver traffic to their sites, which is, as you touched on, Seth, is decoupling. So we have this scenario around zero click. So someone is not coming to your site. The traffic is still there, but they're not actually clicking through to your site. So all of those are kind of, again, those are kind of confusions and things that are in play all the time. And I think, coming back to your question around content creation, I think there is going to be a challenge, and I think these machines are going to have to, and the brands are going to have to start to think about how they retrieve information, and are they going to grade it? Are they going to start to kind of downgrade pure AI generated content?
I wonder that. I think the actual source of information is going to become so much more relevant. So if you talk about the source being internally provided, and from internal documents, maybe that's a situation where internal documents which a company would, now this is a tricky one, internal documents which are normally kept within a company, maybe they are able to be referenced but not necessarily released, if you know what I mean. So they become a proof point of the data that actually comes out of them, but they're not available
to the machines to learn on.
To learn off. So it becomes, okay, this is our, let's say we've written a book, and that book is used internally in our business. But the book is actually given as a one-page document that lives on our website. So the one-page document is completely able to be seen by the public and all the rest. But the actual LLMs can go, oh, the book, that's relevant. They've got so much content there, and it gets distilled down to what the actual person needs to see. Maybe that's a thing in the future. I don't know.
I think that's a really, and Seth and I, both worked in sort of analog publishing, and what's quite interesting is that publishers have been looking at their archives, both in terms of their
Yes.
digital archives, but also their print archives. And obviously, those print archives that have yet to be digitized have not had an LLM train their systems on, and so there's a value point in there.
There's a proof point
that you can, but also an ability to build into your first party data and into your proprietary data once you've digitized that content into a very powerful source of information that is proprietary, that is your own.
Yes.
And there are ways in which you can protect that. And I think those, it will be, again, there will be opportunities where brands and customers and clients, will work on the fact that they know they've got to own, as much proprietary data and first party data that they can, and ensure that is protected and not trained on, and that gives them a competitive advantage. And again, that I think is we're seeing sort of play out, in different scenarios, across different industries as we speak.
Yeah. So I guess brands and businesses, have to make some pretty clear and tough decisions around their use of AI as to content that they are willing to release to LLMs, content that they want to keep sort of gated and protected. It's and I don't think businesses are thinking like that particularly at the moment, are they? I mean, it's a very new world and changing all the time.
I think it depends. Well, I suppose it depends on what some of those industries and businesses and operators within those industries are feeling, whether or not they're being challenged at the moment. I mean, whether they think they are or not, they most likely are. But I think those that sort of have really sort of embraced both the disruption that AI more generally brings, and ensures that they have a sort of laser focused strategy, both from a business perspective internally, so how they're structured, how they're using AI for potentially operational advantages, but also then thinking about their own products and services and how those are either delivered or how they are made more efficient. Those are the operators that will win. This is, I think, more generally, this shift as far as moving moving aside slightly from search, but this is a structural shift that's taking place, and it will impact every business, every industry in one shape or another. And I think those that are prepared to adapt and are prepared to kind of really embrace it, but understand the challenges and understand the implications of this technology, are the ones that are going to win.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I was speaking to a client today, and talking exactly about this, and they are in an industry which is pretty old school. All right, there's a lot of money passing through this particular industry in Australia, but it's very old school, very hands-on, and yet most of the business is driven through search. Most of the business, because it's a consumer, all right, most of the business is driven through search. And I literally said exactly what you said then. The time is now, but it's not just about elevating yourself in the discussion. We need to look at your entire business process to make sure that we are taking advantage of that actual elevation and awareness of your product. Because unless we finish that last bit, unless we go, okay, we're going to get all these eyeballs, do the conversion, keep the customer, it's no point having eyeballs and having clicks and having sales unless we complete that entire transition to make sure that customer is with us for as long as they possibly can be, because the others will catch up. They just will. That's the point of this, is that what is new to us today is old news tomorrow. Actually, it's probably old news in the afternoon if you watch Anthropic's release cycle at the moment.
Yes.
but the opportunity right now is for people to grab it, and there is a lot of businesses like yourself. Sorry, not a lot of businesses. There's a very small amount of businesses like yourself who can assist this, and they should absolutely be reaching out. They should absolutely be reaching out. You could own an entire industry at the drop of a hat with what would have been considered back in the day, 2 or 3 years worth of work and $100,000 or whatever. Now you can do that in an incredibly quick cycle. And the fact that you specifically at Subject are on the bleeding edge of this means that you are able to react. You are able to be on a release cycle that is great for the customers that you have. And that's exciting. It must be exciting for you. I mean, it must be. It's got to be.
No, it is. It's exciting and scary in equal measure. Because I think you touched on, the pace of which, change is happening is eye-watering, and I don't think we've ever.
Yes.
I mean, I think the three of us would all agree that we've seen. And been a part of technology change and the way in which sort of operations work, but I've never seen anything move as quickly as this.
No one has. No one has.
And I suppose again there is a you can get quite bewildered by it, and I think what you have to remain is you have to remain core to the business propositions, the value propositions. And we do as well, because let's face it, we are building software products, and some argue at the moment we are seeing something called the SaaS apocalypse. I don't believe that's the case. I think and you touched on Anthropic and sort of Claude's features
Sherlocking everybody.
Being released and hitting, whether it's the legal industry or whether it's the property industry.
Security.
I mean, and exactly security. They are. Again, it's being seen as sort of bellwether. Sort of software releases and product releases, but I think it's remaining focused. And I think one of the things that comes back to, as I think I touched on at the beginning, I think what my co-founder and I, Ben, have said, look, we have to be focused around delivering value and around core principles, and that our sort of roadmap is focused on that, because otherwise you can start to drift, and as soon as that drift takes place, then you lose that ability to have a sort of a core focus, and that's really what we're looking to try and achieve.
Yeah. And can I just ask also, I mean, we when we talk about using AI and how we the prompts that we give it, we often sort of refer to the fact that we've got lots of human bias that we've put into our prompts and stuff like that.
Yep.
But the reality is that the LLMs have their own biases. I mean, different LLMs will find different sources. So so the playing field is not level in any shape or form.
Not.
I mean, how do you manage that?
And again, that's a really good. You've touched on a really good point, Seth, because actually one of part of this fundamental shift is that we've moved from deterministic search, so where we would have a set of deterministic responses to looking to find information retrieval. We've moved into a probabilistic scenario now. So what I might see for exactly the same prompt, and what you would see, Ben, and what you would see, Seth, could most likely be absolutely and completely different, to one another, because again, personalization is starting to play a key role, which Google again has this fantastic advantage over some of the other operators because of the wealth of data they have on us individually. But the whole sort of this shift from deterministic to probabilistic just means that you've got to be able to, again, remain core to your to your business propositions and your value propositions, and articulate them both on earned and owned platforms, and ensure that you're optimized to maximize your ability to be retrieved by these machines for the right reasons to synthesize those answers. So, for example, creating data layers and ensuring that the machines can read those and understand the text and the images and the narrative that you have created about your products and your services is essential.
Yeah. And
I noticed. Sorry, I was just going to say. I noticed. Sorry, Seth. I noticed today when I was in Bing, because that's one of the main. I think that's what serves ChatGPT, and there was a new tab. Well, it might not be new. It was new to me when I saw it, but a tab that says AI analysis, and it actually does that analysis of your platforms to make sure that you are tuned for AI. To make sure that you're doing all of the technical things. Like it used to be. Make sure you've got alt tabs and alt text on your images. Now it's an entire structure, and and it's a nerd structure. It's completely a nerd structure, making sure that all of those things are done. And again, I come back to there'll be people within your organization, probably in most cases, who can put a little bit of time into this. But if there was ever a time to reach out to the people who actually know what's being done, now is it.
No,
because there's a lot of people out there being pulled into positions that are very smart, but we're going to run out of them. So to actually go to someone like yourself, I know this sounds like a pitch for you. It's not. It is the reality of where we are right now. That you need to, if you're in business, you need to talk to the people that have deep subject matter on this, because it's not easy. It is what used to be in the SEO and SEM world to the power of 100. So you must be talking to the right people. You just must be. Otherwise, you can't rely on just putting a prompt into ChatGPT and say, look at my website and make sure it's valid for ChatGPT searches. Ain't going to work.
Well, my point was going to be that it is not just a nerd problem. It is, significantly a nerd problem in that you need to get your information correct for AI, but it is that whole credibility problem is a business problem from the top down. So marketing teams, the C-suite, they've got to be significantly involved in ensuring that they have credibility in terms of their offering, in terms of their positioning, that the content that they're producing has authority. That's even before an LLM can find it, and then obviously they've got to ensure that it is you can find it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Seth. I think that's absolutely.
Dan, where can people find you, mate?
So look, we've obviously
where can people find you if they want to get there and make a difference?
Well, anyone can contact me via my LinkedIn profile. So, and it is Dan Reeves. And I can, kind of leave that, or we can maybe add that link to any of the show notes. We've got web presence, which is subject.ai, and look, I mean, again, anyone can, as I say, if you find me on LinkedIn, just please connect. Happy to help in any way around understanding this space. I mean, we're still learning. Again, there's a momentum within this sort of whole sort of information retrieval search space, which again we're looking to keep on top of and hope to articulate. And then, as I say, we have a self-serve element to the product that will be launched imminently. So again, anyone can find that. We'll be able to find that and be able to self-serve and use our platform via the website.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's a fascinating subject.
It is. I'm sure we could have conversation. We could have gone on for a day.
If we met in 12 months' time, we're going to be having a completely new and different
Yes.
conversation. But it was
That's exciting.
so amazing, fascinating.
Oh well,
Thank
listen,
you so much.
appreciate it, and look, really appreciate it, guys. And yes, I mean, it is. I mean, we're living in fascinating times, no doubt. And I think navigating this, again, is both exciting and challenging. But the brands that will
Right.
win are the ones that really kind of remain can adapt, but also remain focused on what they deliver and the value that they deliver to their customers.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Well done. Thank you,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Brilliant. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to The Space Between, where honest conversations just came to life. Brought to you by MSQ. Visit msqindex.com to learn more. Now, go forth and enter your own space between.